the Q&A portion of today's talk. If you guys did not receive a piece of paper, raise your hand. One of the volunteers circulating to you a paper or a pen, and I will ask the questions to Chad directly. So it's a really interesting talk, Chad. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. First of all, can you give us a little bit more background on yourself? Where are you from? Where did you go to school? What did you study?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri in the U.S., and I went to the University of Missouri, communications major. After communications, I worked at a TV station for 3 years. And I was part-time, worked there part-time and part-time at a deli. And I decided, I enjoyed the TV station, but I wanted something more. Something more was itching to come to the surface, so the Peace Corps sounded like a great opportunity. And so I went for it. I never considered myself, I don't know if anybody really does, a humanitarian. I didn't do a lot of volunteering work in my lifetime. I've always done my best to be good to others, but when I found out Peace Corps required a lot of volunteer work, I immediately started, to be competitive, you had to have some experience, so I started volunteering to get into the Peace Corps and decided that, learned a lot from those experiences and started enjoying volunteering. Yeah.
So what inspired you to pick the Peace Corps? Did you know anyone that had done it? Did you have any background knowledge in it?
Well, really, I was having like a quarter-life crisis sitting on the couch talking to my mom. And I was saying, what's the next thing I want to do? I don't know. I want to change. And she, being the great mother, just starts rattling off things. When she said Peace Corps, everything froze. She's still talking, but everything kind of froze in time for me. And I was recalling a high school teacher I had. He was a volunteer who would always mention his experiences. And it just sounded like that was, at that moment I knew I wanted to sign up. So after that conversation, I got on the internet and I applied.
So you were talking about the application process. It was a bit competitive. What was the most challenging part of applying for the Peace Corps? Were there any challenges? Was it
just the long?
Can you run us through like a basic application process?
Yeah. From the time that I completed my online application to the time I left, it took 1 year. So you finish your application, and then you wait, and then you get a response. And I was told that I was nominated for Sub-Saharan Africa. Which is just a temporary kind of placement, so I thought I was going to go to Africa. And so then meanwhile I get my medical and my dental, and once you submit that, you still wait. You still don't know if you're going to go. And so in October, I applied in January. In October, I was told I was actually going to the Caribbean and not Africa. So that was a mind switch right there, because I had been reading about Africa, I was in the mindset, and then that following February, I left. But that was then. Today, the application process is a lot more streamlined and simplified, and it's just easier. You can choose where you want to go.
So when exactly were you in, when exactly was your Peace Corps volunteer service?
2011 to 2013.
Okay. So many questions. Really interesting talk. So how successful is the Peace Corps? You were talking about the missions of the Peace Corps. How successful is the Peace Corps in its mission 3? You said it's helping to increase the understanding of other cultures with Americans. How do you do that? How do you feel that is successful? Is the Peace Corps successful in doing that?
I think a lot of volunteers come home and they feel kind of compelled to share. It's not easy to just start sharing with everybody, because not everybody just wants to hear it. But when you have organized things like this, and it's a good opportunity, I think a lot of volunteers take advantage of things like this to kind of share what they went through and to encourage others to take the step if they're thinking about it. So I can only speak for myself right now. I mean, I guess it's successful. I put on a presentation for everybody. I don't know if it's what they wanted to hear or not.
Did you experience any culture shock when you got to St. Vincent?
Yeah, a little bit with living in, it's a very poor country, so that alone is a shock. But you can understand the language for the most part, because there's English, there's Vincentian dialect, so I didn't have that. I think a lot of culture shock comes with not speaking the language, and for the most part I could communicate from the start. So, I guess I had some culture shock. I have to really think about it to really
You said that there are places that you went that there weren't many white foreigners. Did you always feel welcomed? Or like when you first arrived, did you feel welcomed?
Yeah, absolutely. I can count on one hand through my entire 2 years in negative experiences that I've had with somebody from St. Vincent. I mean, in terms of people talking to me or saying bad things, and a couple of those people were clearly mentally unstable. So, very vibrant, spirited people that live in St. Vincent. There are plenty of social issues, so I felt safe where I lived. Depending on where you are, the safety varies, and things happen, of course. But for me, being a tall man, there are less things that I have to deal with. But being white, I think I'm going off on tangents here.
That's okay.
Being white there, I was definitely, and with tourism being a factor in the islands, you were expected to have money. You were the rich foreigner. So, a lot of, even at school, a lot of, teacher, give me dollar, give me dollar. You get a lot of that, and so that was, I guess that is kind of a culture shock.
Did you find it advantageous for yourself being a male in your position? Did you, any female volunteers, did they have any problems that you didn't encounter?
Sure, yeah. Females have it a lot differently. They get a lot more attention. Walking down the street, there's a lot of psst. If a guy sees an attractive girl, you get a lot of the catcalling and that kind of thing. And there were a couple cases of volunteers having to be sent home because of some issues, but overall, it was a relatively safe place for.
That's good to hear. Your school looked really nice. It was beautiful
Brand new,
new school. Yeah. Do you know where the funding came from for that?
For that school, for our school, was what did I say? World Bank.
The World Bank. And is that like, they have a lot of projects in St. Vincent?
Yeah.
Or they did at the time?
Yeah, I know the World Bank and the European Union put a lot of money into building these schools. There's other funding from like the Japanese government. They helped put up some fishery complexes around the island. So I'm not sure exactly everything that they do, but the schools, they had a big
It seemed like the school had good, really nice technology and everything too. Did you have any problems keeping in touch with your family or people back at home?
I had internet in my apartment, and and
That was nice.
It's not the time. It's harder here in Korea to keep in touch with family back home with the time difference. But where I was, time difference and internet connection wasn't a problem.
That's nice. Do you still keep in touch with anyone there now?
Yep, my school counselor, I have a good relationship with. We talk every now and then. And Chester, the guy I showed you, Chester, we keep in contact with students, maybe for a few months after I returned, 6 or so months, some students, but I actually haven't talked to them in quite a while, which I should probably do when I go home.
What was the biggest challenge you faced?
Biggest challenge, probably, I mean, feeling under-equipped for my job and not having really any support, just kind of fending for yourself to really make things work in your class, thinking of new ideas to keep kids interested, rather than running out of the doors, running out of the room, or throwing chairs. And that was the greatest challenge, stretching me to try to do something that I felt was benefiting them and could keep me sane.
Conversely, what was the most rewarding thing that happened to you during your experience?
Being in St. Vincent. There's a good post, there's a good place
It looked really nice.
to be. The most rewarding thing? Yeah, it's just the feeling at the end of 2 years of having created all of these really good connections with everybody from all sorts of different backgrounds, and really opening up my perspective. That was the greatest reward of this whole thing.
This was a really fascinating talk. I have literally probably 100 questions up here to ask, but this is my last question that I'm going to ask you, and then Chad will be around a little bit after the talk if your question didn't get asked and you'd like to talk to him directly after the talk. How how did your experience in St. Vincent affect you coming to Korea? Or was there any crossover? Did you find it easier to come here? Or?
Yeah, I started realizing that I had some snapshots of passion in teaching, so I wanted to explore that more, and just living in another country and the feeling of adapting and overcoming challenges, because you're faced with a lot of challenges living in another country, and that feeling of adapting really stuck. And so, so those two reasons.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for